In the old quarters of Baghdad, where the narrow alleys twist like the plots of ancient storytellers and the shadows hold memories of 1,000 years, there stands a house that no family has lived in for more than 7 months. The locals call it Bayt al-Qareen, the house of the double, and even the boldest among them cross to the other side of the street when they must pass by. This is the story of Mahmoud al-Karkhi, a calligrapher whose pride in his craft opened a door that should have remained sealed forever. The finest calligrapher in all of Baghdad, his Arabic script flowing like liquid poetry across parchment and marble. The wealthy merchants commissioned him to inscribe their business contracts, and the religious authorities sought his hand to copy sacred texts. But Mahmoud's greatest pride was his personal workshop in the old house he had inherited from his grandfather. The house was ancient, its walls built from the same bricks that had once formed the palaces of the Abbasid caliphs. In the basement, behind a door that his grandfather had always kept locked, Mahmoud discovered a room filled with the most beautiful calligraphy he had ever seen. The walls were covered with Arabic text written in a script so perfect it seemed to glow with its own inner light. But as Mahmoud studied the writing more closely, he realized something disturbing. The handwriting was identical to his own, down to the smallest flourish and curve. Impossible, he whispered to himself. No two scribes write exactly alike. The text itself was strange. Verses that seemed to be from the Quran, but with subtle changes that made them feel wrong, like familiar prayers spoken backwards. At the center of the room stood an ornate desk with parchment, ink, and reed pens, arranged as if someone had just finished writing. Mahmoud's wife, Zainab, found him there hours later, staring at the walls with wide eyes.
Husband, what is this place? And why you look so pale?
Someone has been copying my work, Mahmoud said, his voice barely a whisper. But this writing is older than I am. Some of these texts look like they were written decades ago. Zainab approached one of the walls and began to read. Her face went white as she recognized the prayer her husband had written for their wedding invitation, but with words that spoke of death instead of joy, of curses instead of blessings. This is evil, Mahmoud. We must seal this room and never speak of it again. But Mahmoud could not stay away. Night after night, he returned to the basement room, studying the mysterious calligraphy. He began to notice that new writing appeared on the walls. Fresh ink that had not been there the day before, always in his exact handwriting style. One night, as he sat copying a particularly beautiful verse, he heard the scratch of a reed pen behind him. He turned, but the room was empty. Yet when he looked back at the wall, new words had appeared, written in wet ink that gleamed in the candlelight.
Welcome, brother of the pen. I have been waiting for you.
Mahmoud's hand began to shake. He called out, "Who are you? Show yourself." The answer came not in words, but in action. The ink on the wall began to move, rearranging itself into new text.
I'm your Qareen, your shadow self. I've been writing your words before you think them, living your life before you live it.
In Islamic tradition, every person is said to have a Qareen, a jinn double that whispers doubts and dark thoughts. But Mahmoud had never heard of a Qareen that could write, that could create physical manifestations in the world of men. "What do you want from me?" Mahmoud wrote on a piece of parchment, holding it up to the wall. The response appeared instantly.
I want to be you. I have lived in your shadow long enough. Now it's time for me to step into the light, and for you to fade into shadow.
That night, Mahmoud's dreams were filled with visions of another Baghdad, a city of mirrors and shadows where he saw himself walking through the streets, greeting people he knew, living a life that was almost his own but subtly wrong in every detail. When he woke, Zainab was staring at him with frightened eyes.
You were writing in your sleep.
She said, "Your hand was moving across the air as if you held a pen, and you were speaking in a voice that wasn't yours." Mahmoud looked at his hands. His fingers were stained with ink, though he had not touched pen or parchment since the previous evening. Worse, when he went to his workshop, he found that someone had been there in the night. New calligraphy covered his work table. Beautiful, perfect script that was unmistakably his own handwriting, but forming words he had never written. The text was a contract, written in classical Arabic. By the authority of the unseen realm, let it be known that Mahmoud al-Karkhi, master calligrapher of Baghdad, does hereby surrender his place in the world of the living to his Qareen, who has served faithfully in shadow and now claims his right to the light. Let the exchange be completed when the next new moon rises. Mahmoud's blood ran cold. The new moon was only 3 days away. He ran to the basement room, shouting at the walls, "I never agreed to this. I never signed this contract." But as he spoke, he watched in horror as new words appeared on the wall. "Every night you came here, every word you read, every moment you spent in my presence was your signature. The contract is sealed by your own hand." Desperate, Mahmoud sought help from Sheikh Abdullah, the imam of the local mosque. The old man listened to his story with grave concern. In Islamic teaching, the Qareen is normally kept in check by faith and righteous living. But you have been feeding it with your attention, your curiosity, your pride in your craft. Now it has enough strength to manifest in the physical world. "What can I do?" Mahmoud begged. "You must stop going to that room. You must stop acknowledging its existence. Starve it of your attention, and it will fade back into shadow." But when Mahmoud returned home, he found Zainab in the kitchen preparing his favorite meal. She smiled at him, but her smile was wrong, too wide, too knowing.
How's your day, my dear husband?
She asked, and her voice carried an echo that made his skin crawl. That night, Mahmoud pretended to sleep while watching his wife carefully. As the midnight hour approached, she rose from bed and walked to the basement. But her movements were wrong. She seemed to glide rather than walk, and her feet made no sound on the wooden floors. Following at a distance, Mahmoud watched as the figure that looked like his wife entered the cursed room. From the doorway, he could see her writing on the walls with inhuman speed, her hand moving in patterns that no human could match. But when she turned around, her face was not Zainab's. It was his own face, but twisted with a cruel smile that he had never worn.
"You cannot hide from me, Mahmoud,"
the thing said in his own voice. The Qareen is growing stronger. The Qareen had not just copied his handwriting. It had learned to copy his entire existence. "I know your every thought before you think it. I am you, but perfected. I am you, but free of doubt and weakness." Mahmoud fled the house and spent the night in the mosque, praying until dawn. When he returned, he found his neighbors gathered in the street, talking in hushed tones. "Such a tragedy," one of them said. Mahmoud al-Karkhi found his wife dead in the basement. They say she fell and struck her head on the stone floor. But Mahmoud knew the truth. The Qareen had killed Zainab to complete its transformation, to remove the one person who might have questioned its impersonation. He tried to tell the authorities, but who would believe such a story? And when he looked in the mirror, he saw his own face looking back. But the eyes held a malevolent intelligence that was not his own. "I am in control now," his reflection whispered. "You are the shadow, and I am the substance." In the days that followed, Mahmoud's friends and neighbors noticed changes in him. His calligraphy became even more beautiful, but the words he wrote seemed to carry a dark influence. Business contracts written in his hand led to betrayals and bankruptcies. Wedding invitations brought divorce instead of joy. Even his copying of religious texts seemed to drain the faith from those who read them. But only Mahmoud knew the truth, that he was becoming the Qareen, the shadow self, while his double lived his life with perfect malevolent skill. He made one final desperate attempt to break free. On the night of the new moon, he entered the basement room with a torch, intending to burn the cursed calligraphy and destroy the Qareen's power. But as he held the flame to the wall, he realized his mistake. The writing was not the Qareen's prison. It was his own. Every word, every verse, every beautiful script was a chain that bound him to the shadow realm. The torch fell from his hand as he felt himself growing transparent, fading like morning mist. In the doorway stood his perfect double, solid and smiling. "Thank you, brother," the Qareen said in his voice. "Your place in the world is mine now, and your place in shadow is yours to keep." The last thing Mahmoud saw was his own face, wearing an expression of triumph he had never felt. Then the world faded to gray, and he found himself trapped in the space between the walls, watching as his double lived his life with cruel perfection. The Qareen had won. It walked through Baghdad, wearing Mahmoud's face, practicing his trade, sleeping in his bed. But the calligraphy it created carried a poison that spread through the city like a plague of bad luck and broken dreams. To this day, the house in the old quarter remains empty. The neighbors say that sometimes, on quiet nights, they can hear the scratch of a reed pen coming from the basement and see the glow of candlelight behind the shuttered windows. The calligraphy shop that was once Mahmoud's most proud achievement stands abandoned, its windows dusty and its door barred. But the old-timers in the neighborhood know better than to venture too close, especially when the moon is new. For in the shadows between the buildings, they say, walks the true Mahmoud al-Karkhi, transparent as morning mist, trying to warn anyone who will listen about the perfect double that stole his life and now spreads its influence through the beautiful cursed words it writes. This was the story of Mahmoud al-Karkhi and the Qareen that learned to write, a warning from the old quarters of Baghdad, where shadows have substance and mirrors sometimes show the truth we dare not face.